Concussions and brain injuries are very common, especially for athletes, but how many concussions end up changing those athletes' lives forever? Every person has a different reaction to a concussion, and depending on how serious the injury is and where you may have been hit, you can have different symptoms. I am choosing to talk about this topic today because people get concussions all the time, and the best way to recover quick is to be able to identify the symptoms so that you are able to help yourself or someone else have a quick and safe recovery. In high school, I struggled with having a bad concussion from cheer that lasted a whole year and ended up making it so I am not supposed to play sports or do any extreme activities. It was the week of homecoming and we were practicing our stunts for the football game. I was the back spot, so my main job was to catch the flyer. There were several times that the flyer would fall, but she would not land on the ground. I just so happened to take the impact to my head. Throughout the week, I had been landed on several different times. About a week later, I realized that I may have a concussion. I went to my doctor and he said I definitely had a concussion, and since it was the second one I had and it seemed to be pretty severe, he referred me to the concussion clinic. After meeting with the neurologist, we figured out my main symptoms, which were I had issues balancing and would get dizzy. I had a terrible headache all the time. I had short-term memory issues, and I also had injured my back and neck pretty badly. Eventually, I ended up going to a speech therapist, a balance therapist, and a physical therapist as well. What I am researching is how getting hit on different parts of your brain and head will affect the symptoms that you have. Concussions are something that many people struggle with, whether it be high schoolers, adults, or just anyone. Everyone has a different response to a concussion, and I'm going to go over what a concussion is, how being hit in different spots impacts our body's functions, and lastly, my personal experience as well as different treatments. The first thing that I'll go over is what is a concussion. A concussion to me is an injury that an injury to a brain after being hit really hard or having impact that may cause the brain to shake in the skull. Defined by the Concussion Foundation, a concussion is a type of traumatic brain injury caused by a bump, blow, or jolt to the head, or by a hit to the body that causes the head and brain to move rapidly back and forth. Rapid movement causes brain tissue to change shape, which can stretch and damage brain cells. This damage also causes chemical and metabolic changes within the brain cells, making it more difficult for cells to function and communicate. Since the brain is the body's control center, the effects of the concussion can be far-reaching. Many people experience concussions, but a common population that experiences concussions would be high school athletes. According to the Concussion Foundation, concussions can occur in any sport during practice or competition. In fact, according to a 2019 study by the Journal of Pediatrics, 36% of all diagnosed high school sports occurred during practice, with cheerleading being the only sport with a higher rate during practice than competition. What are some symptoms people may experience? According to the CDC, some symptoms that a person with a concussion may experience are headaches, vomiting, dizziness or balance issues, trouble with memory, feeling down, feeling confused, and may be bothered by light or noise. Some symptoms, according to the CDC, that others may observe in someone with a concussion is that the person may be confused, they may have a hard time following instructions or doing an assignment, they may have personality or behavior changes, and they might be more clumsy and take longer to answer questions. And they also could possibly lose consciousness. Now that we have covered what a concussion is and some of the symptoms you may experience, let's get into how different areas of the brain help your body function. How a concussion may impact different functions of your body based on what area you may have been impacted. There are three major areas of the brain. There's the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. The brain also contains different sections. You have the right and left hemisphere, and then another way that the brain is split up is by different lobes. There are 4 main lobes. There's the frontal lobe, the temporal lobe, the occipital lobe, and the parietal lobe. Each lobe has different functions, and they are in charge of different personality. The frontal lobe is in charge of controlling memory, language, judgment, sexual behavior, emotion, and cognitive skills. The temporal lobe is in charge of controlling the process of hearing. The parietal lobe is in charge of controlling sensation and perception, and the occipital lobe is in charge of controlling vision and balance. The frontal lobe is going to be located in like the front of your head, specifically like right here. And then you'll have your temporal lobe, which is going to be like your temples. And then your parietal lobe is going to come like split in the middle and kind of go just around. And then your occipital lobe is going to be in the back of your head. How these areas can impact your functions based on where you're hit is that if you're hit in one of those areas, it's definitely going to impact how your body processes different things. The main areas that I got hit in were my frontal lobe and my occipital lobe. I suffered with memory issues as well as balance issues. Now that we have talked about how different areas of the brain help other areas function, let's go over how a concussion is treated. So how to treat a concussion is, according to the CDC, they suggest for treatment is rest, light activity, and slowly making your way back to normal activity based off of different symptoms you may be experiencing. Everyone's bodies are different, so everyone's going to process, their healing process is going to be different. The CDC also recommends avoiding screen time, not going to school during your concussion, and if you are, to just slowly ease into the workload so that it's not overwhelming. They also suggest that you do not take naps during the day. I definitely struggled with that during mine because I just was always exhausted. But they say that getting sleep at night is just going to be the best bet for recovery. My treatment with my concussion is that it lasted about a year, which is pretty long for a concussion. I went to lots of different doctors just because I needed to go to different specialists. The first doctor I saw was my general practitioner, who then referred me to a neurologist. My neurologist then took a look at my symptoms and me and decided who I needed to see. He sent me to a speech therapist first, who would help me with my issues of short-term memory. Then I went to a physical therapist who helped me strengthen the muscles in my neck and back because I had hurt them when I had gotten fallen on. And then in hopes of recovering those muscles and making them stronger, it would make my back pain less intense, and that was also probably contributing to my severe headaches. Then my last doctor I saw was my balance therapist, who would help me work on my balance and also deal with me feeling dizzy. All of these doctors were super helpful, and although I had a long recovery, they made sure I had everything I needed to make it a successful recovery. Today I went over what a concussion is, how getting hit in different areas of your brain can affect the way that your body functions, and then lastly, treatment and my own personal treatment as well. In conclusion, concussions are a serious injury, and what I hope that you guys get out of this speech is that you're able to help realize some symptoms in other people that may have a concussion, or if you end up getting a concussion yourself, that you can notice symptoms, because then you're able to go and get treatment as soon as possible and not further injure yourself. Thank you for listening to my speech. I hope you guys all enjoyed and learned a lot.